But if you break this line, this is a definitive trend line connecting all these lows. That's where I think you start to flush. You'll probably get a small bounce at the previous 2017 high and then eventually break through that. So
hello and welcome to the Daily Crypto. Once again, we have Gareth with us to talk about his future plans for Bitcoin. This is going to be super interesting because he also reveals a strategy to buy Bitcoin to come out profitable in the next few months. So make sure to stick around because it will help you make some money.
yeah, so I mean, per the last Federal Reserve meeting a few weeks ago, we basically had a little bit more of a dovish Federal Reserve tone, right? So they raised the 75 basis points, which is what the market expected. But in the conference, it was a little bit more dovish. That created this massive move up in the tech sector. We saw stocks and the S&P just rip higher, right? Now, interestingly enough, we got the jobs report this morning, right? So the non-farm payrolls came out. It came out over 500,000 new jobs. And that kind of made the markets freak out a little bit because I think the markets had thought the Federal Reserve was almost done raising, if not done, and expected a weaker jobs report to kind of confirm that they were on the sidelines. With this better than expected jobs report, I think it puts September in play for at least 25 basis points, maybe 50 basis points. And that has the market again a little bit uneasy that the Fed is just going to keep tightening monetary supply. Now, for me personally, I think that the jobs numbers are lagging. So I think that, again, you're going to see more and more weakness coming in the coming months. So maybe the Fed raises in September a little bit, but I really do believe that's it. I think that'll be all that there will be because I do think we'll be in a defined recession. I mean, even now with the GDP numbers, you could say, yeah, we're in a recession, but the jobs numbers kind of go against that. But I do think by end of year, there's no doubt about whether or not it's a recession.
After the recent Fed announcement of increasing interest rates by 75 basis points, we saw all financial markets surge drastically as investors believe this is as far as the Fed can go. Gareth says even though the government is not acknowledging that the economy is in a recession, the GDP numbers indicate that we're in a recession with the exception of jobs. However, he thinks that by September, it will all start to tumble and we will be in a confirmed recession.
Basically, what you've had is ever since we pierced that initial pierce of the 2017 highs here, we've seen Bitcoin kind of go up a little bit, come down, up, down, and basically going sideways to slightly higher. So I'm inclined to think that in the near term, we continue to see that price action. I kind of expect one more move up here, maybe in the Bitcoin chart, hitting 25,500. There's a small chance we could get up to resistance at 28 and change. But ultimately, I think that later this year, when that shoe drops, that the Fed can't save the day and it causes a big risk reduction, right? You have a risk-off environment. We know that Bitcoin goes down in a risk-off environment. Once the stock market investors realize that, it's going to filter through to crypto. And I do think there's still one more leg lower before we finally get a bottom. And I'm still pricing in really a target price of around $13,000 to $12,000 on that next flush.
Gareth expects one small move to the upside, touching 25K and potentially 28K. But after that, he thinks Bitcoin will come back down into the 12 to 13K range, which should be the bottom according to him.
But, the easy way for us to tell is to look at this channel, right? So see this upsloping the bottom line, that's kind of keeping price in check. As long as price stays in here, I think you favor neutral to upside, maybe here or here. But if you break this line, this is a definitive trend line connecting all these lows. That's where I think you start to flush. You'll probably get a small bounce at the previous 2017 high and then eventually break through that. So I think, again, yeah, short-term neutral to positive on Bitcoin from here. And then again, later this year, you got to expect one more flush out. And it probably will be the nastiest and the worst in terms of fear, because always the end of cycles are the scariest, right? Where things, imagine seeing Bitcoin at 12 or 10,000. Everyone's going to start to doubt, like, will Bitcoin survive? Can it survive? That's when you actually, as an investor, need to start thinking about really buying into it.
We are yet to see mass panic in the market, and that adds more confluence to Gareth's plans for Bitcoin. It's only a matter of time before we break these lows and have a sharp drop to 12K. Markets bottom when people start to question the sustainability, and in this case, they will start to wonder whether this is the end of Bitcoin. When this happens, that would be a perfect time to buy into it.
Now is, and what's interesting for me is that you can see the kind of the angle on Bitcoin's been very sideways to slightly up. It's not been vertical bouncing. And I think part of that, and what's interesting is if you look at the NASDAQ's really ripped up, and those usually coincide. So a lot of people have been saying, well, why hasn't Bitcoin had a big move up like the NASDAQ instead of just going slightly up sideways? And I think the answer there is that, with Celsius and Voyager and all these other ones, you have a lot of money that's just scared. Like, who wants to put their money in with these brokers and be in crypto when who knows what the next shoe to drop is, which broker is going to go under, which one's going to file for bankruptcy. So I think that's kind of keeping a lid on the upside price in Bitcoin as well. But I think later this year, that narrative is going to shift to that panic sell-off. And I do think the final flush out will be something major. I don't know if it's Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy's finally throwing in the towel and dumping their Bitcoin at like 10,000. Maybe we see a bigger broker go bankrupt. I mean, all these possibilities are there, but I do think more is going to happen before you get an ultimate bottom.
We know that the NASDAQ and Bitcoin's movement has been similar if we look at it historically, but this time, Bitcoin has been moving rather slow as compared to the NASDAQ. This is because people are scared of buying Bitcoin after the recent collapse of huge financial institutions like Voyager and Celsius.
Yeah, so if past cycles are any indication, and I can show, we can go to the 2017 cycle here. So what's interesting about the 2017 cycle is you kind of had this period where we had the big dump out, and then you had this lots of chop for a while, which could be what we're doing right now. I'm not sure, but that would make sense if it were to go till like October, November. And then you had this final flush out. And then notice how it took a while for it to kind of digest before finally starting to make that next move up. So again, if you look at this final flush, it kind of bottomed out in December of 2018. And then the next move up, you could arguably say, kind of started in April. So my guess is you have about 6 months of chop around the lows where you have people that are saying, this is the worst, and then you have people that are nibbling, maybe smart money starting to buy down there, and you get that kind of exchange where neither side is winning. They're just exchanging shares from people that are fearful with people that are buyers and saying, okay, this is the right time to accumulate. So my guess is, yeah, you'll see usually bottoms, you'll see a lot of chop as the bottom is made.
According to Gareth, the journey from bottom to new all-time highs will be full of ups and downs, and it will move slowly, as it will take some time for the investors' sentiments to change.
If there's one thing I know, it's that it's very hard, and it's very hard for me to pick exact bottoms, right? So like when we were down at 19,000, I basically announced that I was going to be buying my first HODL position out of a multiple, right? And the idea there is that, I basically in my head, I love Bitcoin long-term. I'm such a big bull long-term, even though it doesn't seem like that. I'm just a chart guy. So if it tells me it's going down, I have to go with that. I can't, make believe. So basically in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm going to put X amount of money in Bitcoin as a HODL position at some point. And at 19,000, I put like 1/6 of that to work. And the idea there is that basically I do believe it's going to go lower, but just in case it doesn't, I do want some skin in the game to participate on that upside. So basically 1/6 in at 19, if it dropped another 2,000 to 3,000, I do another 1/6, another 2,000 to 3,000, another 1/6, basically dollar cost averaging all the way down to like 10,000. And then the way I look at it is like, even if it goes to 10,000, if my average price is 15,000, and it's going to 100 or 150 or 250, like at that point, it's a rounding error, So again, I think investors need to really be aware that even the pros, it's almost impossible to pick the exact low. So why try? Just kind of generally say, okay, well, this is a good level if I have that long-term thesis, and then you just start to kind of dollar cost average in.
Since no one can pick the exact bottom, Gareth is dollar cost averaging his long-term HODL position and buying whenever price drops to a certain point. This averages out the buying price, and when prices go up in the long term, it won't matter because the difference will be negligible. Are you holding crypto long term, or are you a day trader? We would love to know, so drop a comment down below. Like this video and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on market news and events. See you guys in the next video.